Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio serves on both the Foreign Relations and Intelligence Committees, and he joins us now. Senator Rubio, good morning. Great to have you with us today.
Thank you.
What was your reaction when you heard the president talk about that as a core principle of his presidency last night?
Well, it hasn't been up to now, unfortunately. But look, I think we're in a better place today with the president than we were before this speech. It wasn't long ago he was calling ISIL the JV, and now he's recognized them for what they are, a very dangerous group. It wasn't long ago that he was basically poking fun at the Syrian rebels and saying that it was a fantasy to think that a bunch of pharmacists and farmers could become a fighting force, and now he wants to arm them. So I'm glad he's come around on those issues, and we're in a better place today than we were a week ago because of that. But I will say that I have some deep concerns after that speech. First, he said this operation is going to be like Somalia. It's going to be like other places in North Africa, Yemen. But the truth is those countries are still extremely unstable. They're still very dangerous national security threats, what's happening there. The other thing I would say is that in those countries you have governments that are cooperating with us. And ISIL is different from the terrorists that are in Somalia and Yemen. They have an army. They have advanced weapons. They control territory. They have thousands of foreign fighters among them. They're generating $1 million a day in oil revenue from refineries that they've seized. We cannot address ISIL the way you address Yemen and Somalia because they're very different problems.
Yeah, they've taken over oil fields, they've taken over banks, and have an enormous amount of money and financing, as you point out. You know, it's interesting. Brit Hume was talking the other night about how, in many ways, President Obama may be at a point in his presidency, looking back and given everything that's happened, that he would need to acknowledge some of the mistakes and to recognize that some of what President Bush said was right about all of this terrorism. And I want to play, because his sounded very familiar when he talked about the safe haven, to what President Bush said not long after the September 11th attacks. Let's listen to this.
Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. From this day forward, any nation that continues to harbor or support terrorism will be regarded by the United States as a hostile regime.
It sounds very similar in many ways, and I think that line, when the president said it last night, really jumped out at so many people. And as you say, it will be proven, essentially, I suppose, by the actions and the commitment and the attention that the president actually pays to this issue, will it not?
Well, it will. 2 points I would make on that regard. The first is the reason why the president's foreign policy failed is because the Obama-Clinton foreign policy is built on neo-isolationism, on the belief that American engagement is what's causing all these problems, that it's our fault that these problems are happening in the Middle East because we're too involved. So if we pull out, things will get better. That's what his whole foreign policy has been built on. And there are even people in my own party that somehow believe that as well. And it's created tremendous problems. And now here's the proof of that. The second point I would make is one of the things you didn't hear the president say last night is we will do whatever it takes to defeat ISIL. And I'll tell you why that's important. Because while I do believe that the ideal way to defeat them is the combination of U.S. air power and local forces on the ground, Iraqis and moderate Sunnis and Syria and Kurds, it may not work. And if it doesn't, does that mean then that we're going to allow ISIL to exist, that we're going to try the best we can, but if it doesn't work out, they get to stay? I'm concerned about that because the president didn't say last night that it would, no matter what, we're going to do whatever it takes to win. And allowing ISIL to exist in any form is simply unacceptable. We have to do anything we can to prevent that from happening.
Well, you have to wonder, because his timeline is 3 years, he said, which obviously goes beyond his presidency, and it may push beyond his presidency the decision about whether or not this job was completed under his presidency, whether or not we won, as you say. And Dan Henninger wrote a very interesting column this morning that really outlines so much of what we've had to deal with since September 11th. And I want to put that up on the screen for people to look at, and I'd love to get your reaction to it, Senator. He says, in the years after 9/11 came London, Madrid, the Boston Marathon, multiple failed attempts to bomb New York, Mumbai, Kenya, Boko Haram, the re-rocketing of Tel Aviv, Christian holy places destroyed, thousands of Arabs blown up in the active daily life. That's the short list, he says. ISIS is just the tip of the world's unstable iceberg, and we are all living on the Titanic.
Well, there's a good point there.
Is it that scary a time?
It is, because ISIL is a big problem. We forget that there are a host of other groups out there, the al-Nusra Front in Syria, the different al-Qaeda affiliates, who all continue to plot to attack us. And here's what makes it even more dangerous. All of those groups, recently, al-Qaeda and others, have lost donors and have lost fighters to ISIL because ISIL is getting all the positive publicity. So what are those groups looking to do now? If they're tempted to do now, they are tempted to accelerate their plotting to carry out some sort of spectacular attack so they can recapture some of the attention, some of the money, and some of the fighters that they have lost to ISIL over the last few months because of the gains ISIL has made. So ISIL's huge. It's a big threat before us, but there are a host of other groups out there that are planning the same thing and that could very easily become our newer, bigger threat in the future. So it is a deeply complicated world, and the isolationism of this president has made it more so over the last 6 years.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Marco Rubio, always good to talk to you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.